Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Imagine a national commission about car crash deaths, but also imagine that same commission didn't actually look at cars. Well, that's what's happening here.
The Federal Commission on School Safety will apparently not study the impact on guns on school safety. The commission was formed after the Parkland shooting, where 17 people were killed. Here's what Education Secretary Betsy DeVos told a Senate committee. Listen.
Will your commission look at the role of firearms as it relates to gun violence in our schools?
That is not part of the commission's charge, per se.
I see. So you're studying gun violence, but not considering the role of guns.
We're actually studying school safety and how we can ensure our students are safe at school.
Wow. In case there's any question about whether guns play a role in school violence, let's take a quick look at the numbers. This year alone, there have already been 17 school shootings. That has the highest number during any year in recent history. More students have been killed at school this year than those killed while deployed in the United States military, according to the Washington Post. Just look at last month. In 4 separate school shootings in May, 10 students were killed, 16 others injured. And if you look back nearly 20 years since Columbine in 1999, at least 141 students and educators were killed in their classrooms. Another 287 have been injured. Beyond the dead and wounded, what about the kids forced to witness their classmates being murdered or cower behind a locked door or behind a desk to avoid gunfire? More than 115,000 students have experienced gun violence at their schools since Columbine. These numbers come from a year-long investigation by the Washington Post because the federal government does not currently track school shootings.
Why not? Let's bring in Randy Weingarten. She's the president of the American Federation of Teachers, the second largest teachers union in the country. Randy, I don't understand. First of all, do your teachers have a role in this examination? Because we can't figure it out. Why, if the federal government is looking into school safety, there are more people getting killed by guns in school safety than getting killed by anything else in school. So why is this not the top of the list, let alone not on the list?
Well, I mean, look, nothing any longer surprises me about what Betsy DeVos does, but it's more than ridiculous. It says to people in America that the federal government doesn't work, because it is the height of hypocrisy to pretend you're doing something but then actually not do it. And so Stephanie just said the statistics that I would have said, but let's put it this way. Other countries have figured this out. And Betsy DeVos is not only not letting guns be an issue in a commission that was set up after the murder of children in schools by guns, but she's also not going to the hearing today where you had people like Abby Clemens, who survived the 2012 Sandy Hook shooting, testifying. And what I would say to Betsy is this. maybe she read the New York Times today. At least she'll get some indication of what actually happened, the terror that happened in Parkland. Yeah. But I would say this. If you're so intent on going out of town and out of the country today, what Switzerland is doing in terms of career tech ed, why don't you study what Australia and Great Britain are doing in terms of gun safety in schools?
Right.
And it's just hypocritical. And frankly, the problem is, given this administration, the only thing we can do is actually not have this administration. Okay. They don't want to solve it.
I understand that that's your position, but this is our current administration, and we've got to work with who the president is. I know you wrote a letter to President Trump back in February.
He never answered.
Asking him to meet with you to discuss school safety. What happened?
Never answered. And in fact, Stephanie, we are, there are issues, mental health issues, doing things around wraparound services, ensuring that we actually deal with mental health issues. Something that we did with Governor Cuomo yesterday, the red flag laws, where if law enforcement or families, or what Governor Cuomo did, which was extended to teachers, feel like a child is a clear and present danger and could be, this goes to a judge. There are other things that we can do. The problem is this. This is increasing right now. When kids like in Santa Fe believe that it's a matter of when, not whether. So we're going to have to work with governors. We're going to have to work with legislators. We will keep trying to get them to listen. But if they don't even show up at their own hearings, the only thing one can do is is to shame them and to make what they are doing or not doing transparent.
Yeah, it was definitely shocking at the Santa Fe, Texas shooting to hear a student say, we expected it.
It is Thursday, the 7th of June of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, folks. Oh, Betsy DeVos. There's a mistaken belief, and many who follow the tenets of the prosperity gospel believe that this closed circle of affirmation, one in which if you are making a lot of money, you are blessed by God. And if you are blessed by God, you're going to make a lot of money. And so it follows that if you are blessed by God, you inherently know the secrets to the universe. I wholeheartedly admit it is anecdotal. But my anecdotal experience, every person that I've talked to with considerable money, and I'm talking about Larry Ellison too. Yeah, I cooked for him for a little while. Well, occasionally, because he'd rent the yachts and have his yearly bash, or actually twice yearly bash. And then I was invited to chef some other events that he had put on. But regardless, every single one of them think that they have an inherent knowledge of the secrets of the universe. So it is no wonder that Betsy DeVos would believe. Well, because she comes from, a long line of, prosperity winners. And she married into one too. So she's obviously touched by God, and her knowledge is paramount, supreme. So, but also, I think that this gives the lie that, money confers knowledge, because I've always noted that a lot of idiots have made a lot of money. So apparently you don't need to be a rocket scientist to make bucks. But what you do need to lack is, I don't know, when I was younger I called it a soul. But now I might use terms like, a lack of empathy, a lack of a moral construct to be neighborly, a concern for your fellow citizens, lack of all of that. But Betsy DeVos, I don't know. At some point in one's life, you go full circle. And I guess I'll just call her evil. Because she is. And I don't even believe in evil. This is how bad it is. Well, lots more happening out in the world today, of course. Looks like there's some sort of mystery illness that U.S. diplomats have been hit with in China. Resonating with the mystery illness in Cuba. Wonder what that is. Volcanic lava buries 2 housing tracts on Hawaii's Big Island. Well, I don't know. It was all in the disclosure statement. You know, you have to have a disclosure, and they're on top of a volcano. Now, I was wondering, is lava, covering up your whole housing tract? Is that an act of God? I mean, would some savvy lawyer go in and say, well, actually, it wasn't an act of God. It was a goddess. So things don't apply now. Sorry. I don't know. But I think we better remember, we're only parasites on the skin of the earth. And when we really start bugging the earth has a way of shaking us off. So if we want to be symbiotic, we better learn to stop, poking too much. That's right. Well, let's get into the issues that we're going to deal with today, because I could just go on and read the topics and headlines of so much news, but there is a curated show today, such as it is. Well, on the rest of the menu, continuing in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, the Department of Justice will share additional documents on the FBI informant with the Gang of 8 next week. I'm so old. I remember when these terms like Gang of 8 was ascribed to like Mao, or like Mao's wife and her Gang of 8. Yee. Well, I don't know. They were all commie hunters. And now look at them. Jeez. The health secretary lied to Congress by insisting all asylum seekers are not being separated from their kids. Well, Mr. Health Secretary, you ought to know there are no absolutes in this universe. Oh, maybe you don't know that. And Louisiana lawmakers are pushing bills that benefit their own businesses, and it's perfectly legal. You can make the law do anything you want when you want it. After the break, we'll move to the chef's table, where even though white supremacist candidates' hopes were trampled in Tuesday's primary races. Primary race? That almost sounds like primary racists. Well, these white supremacists vow to continue their campaigns of hate. Because Russ never sleeps, The corrosion of hate never sleeps. And Trump's antipathy towards the NFL is not about his fight over patriotism, fake as it is, but a decades-long grudge over being rejected from joining the big boys club. Everything Trump touches turns to, All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll notice the chat room link on the rightish of the page. Do engage us there. Kelly Lincoln, Roaring Girl, monitors that throughout the day and in real time, quite often, by the way. So check in there. to the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of the homepage at netrootsradio.com are the contribute and donate buttons. And thank you for your generosity. The lights are blinking, the bills are paid. We are unable to do this without you. So thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts, and that is true. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Tom carries that one, and quite deftly and wonderfully too. You can go to Facebook if you want. I guess I take care of that, I guess. But you can go there if you'd like. And you can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. Follow West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy at Cookbook West. I have no idea. You could put in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and it'll take you there. But it's at Cookbook West. And let's see. Oh, podcasts of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy can be had by way of Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. And also there's a reprise every day of the morning show in the afternoon, evening time. That would be 5 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 p.m. on the East Coast for the reprise of that day's West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And today it's Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. The more I mull over this whole Betsy DeVos debacle about, we're not going to include, gun safety or gun issues in our safety report, which it's the number one killer. Number one. I mean, there's more product liability lawsuits for garage doors, automatic garage doors failing and killing kids and people, not just kids. But, like regular everyday people. Oh, my God. What have we become? And, but that's only because the gun manufacturers don't have to suffer product liability lawsuits because, I don't know, good lobbying, I guess. Wouldn't you call it that? So I mull over this Betsy DeVos thing, and David Hogg, one of the survivors, a kid, got was swatted the other day. Now we have to remember David Hogg's dad is an I believe a current, or maybe he's retired, FBI agent. But I guess in this topsy-turvy world we live in now, he is like a hippie. David Hogg's dad is a hippie or something because he worked for the FBI. He's worse than the worst. He's worse than Hillary in their minds. These fevered and feverish minds of these right-wingers. It's crazy. So the kid got swatted. Well, fortunately, he wasn't there. Other family members had to suffer the potential consequences. But it makes you wonder. Now, it was a hostage situation, the cops got to do what they got to do. But, they bring in the tank and the ninja warriors, and something bad could have happened. And now he's being attacked by, Tomi Lahren today. He's being attacked by that North Dakota white girl who likes to carry her gun, a big old military-type gun on her, on her back, strapped around, walking around to class. I'm going to study Descartes. Here, excuse me when I put my assault weapon across my lap while we ponder the nature of being as proposed by Descartes. Jeez. I don't think she's not taking those classes. But she's attacking the kid. These are survivors of a horrendous murder. What kind of Americans do that? Huh? Let's take back America. I want America to be great again. Thank you. All right, let's get to the Department of Justice, who's now going to share some documents because, Devin Nunes needs he needs to earn. And he's got to kick something up to Big Daddy. That's what I say. Well, this is by Nicole Lafond. I'm sorry. out of Talking Points memo. The Department of Justice plans to share additional information with senior members of Congress early next week about the FBI's decision to deploy an informant with members of Donald Trump's campaign in 2016. According to a DOJ official who spoke with Politico, the lawmakers included in the bipartisan Gang of Eight group will have the chance to review documents that they didn't see at the classified meeting between lawmakers and DOJ officials last month. That meeting initially only included Republican members of Congress because they're really trying to make this into a banana republic. Really trying. But Democrats demanded to be included. Interesting. The department and FBI are prepared to brief members on certain questions specifically raised by the Speaker and other members, the DOJ official told Politico. The department will also provide the documents that were available for some review, but not inspected by the members at the previous briefing, along with some additional material. In other words, the DOJ has to walk a fine line here, I would think. Even with Sessions in charge. Because what we're talking about is revealing evidence collected and giving it to the crook. This is what they have on me. Yesterday, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, who will be included in the meeting, is part of an increasing number of Republicans to break with Trump on his assessment of the use of an FBI informant to gather information about his campaign officials' contacts with Russia. Ryan said he saw no evidence to support Trump's claims that the informant was a spy sent by the Obama administration to infiltrate his campaign. Trump has seized on the reports of the informant as evidence of his belief in a deep state within the FBI that's biased against him and has dubbed the whole ordeal Spygate. Yeah, it's Spygate, Donnie. Here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. This is an article out of Think Progress by Amanda Michelle Gomez. Now, Trump administration officials talk about their zero-tolerance policy on the southwest border. They're often lying about what's actually going on. Last month, Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced that undocumented immigrant children crossing the border would be separated from their families. Since then, Donald Trump has repeatedly blamed his administration's own policy on Democrats. Gaslighting, folks. Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen has also equated family separation at the border with U.S. citizen children being removed from convicted parents. But parents at the border haven't been convicted of anything, only charged, and are likely fleeing persecution and seeking asylum, which is a right afforded under U.S. law. So who is violating the law here, folks? The Nazis in cahoots with Putin? Or the people trying to flee murder and mayhem in the arms of America? Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar, who oversees the Office of Refugee Resettlement, which gains custody of these minors, is now joining the chorus. Testifying before House Committee on Wednesday, Azar said individual children are separated from their parents only when those parents cross the border illegally and are arrested. We can't have children with parents who are in incarceration, so then they're given to me. Azar told Representative Susan Bonamici, Democrat of Oregon, who asked about the family separation policy. If one presents at an actual border crossing and presents a case to come into this country, one is not arrested and one's children are not separated from them. But it's not that simple. The new zero-tolerance policy applies to everyone crossing the border without documentation. So, in other words, without documents, you're an illegal, not undocumented. Parents are separated from their kids, who are then considered to have crossed the border as unaccompanied minors. The parents don't have documentation, or the right documentation. Let's put it that way. They have documentation. Oh, you don't have Form 111999999111119? I'm sorry. You're an illegal then. Yeah, we get to take your kids and, we'll adopt them out to the Russians. How do you like them apples? Well, the administration hopes this blanket policy will deter people from crossing the border without documentation in the future. Just get the right documents. Get the Form 19999999999999999. Subset B1. If you don't have the subset B1, I'm sorry, you can't come in here. We're going to have to take your kids. Throughout the hearing on Wednesday, Azar wasn't able to answer a lot of questions relating to the intersection of immigration and health. He couldn't speak of a reported immigration rule change regarding public charge that could reduce health coverage for thousands of kids, many U.S. citizen children. When asked if undocumented children should be eligible for the Children's Health Insurance Program, he said, I have not studied or looked into that issue. I mean, after all, he's only the Health and Human Services Director. What do you expect of him? Knowledge to keep the department running properly? Alrighty, finishing up here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, is an article by ProPublica, and it's quite comprehensive and much longer than we'll be able to go through here today before the break. But Louisiana State Representative Lance Harris, one of the legislator's most powerful Republicans, has cast himself as a purist when it comes to conflicts of interest among state leaders. In April, he introduced a bill that would have prohibited the heads of state agencies from taking side jobs that overlap with their government roles. Arrangements, he said, could put them in a precarious position. And I'm sure his colleague said, "What are you doing? You have no idea how it works." The conflict they get you in is, let's say you're over the industry itself. Harris said that that month when presenting the bill in a House committee, you may promulgate some rules or make some decisions that would be advantageous to that particular company or that particular industry. That's what it gets at. It's just a good government bill. Yet within weeks of introducing the bill, Harris proposed two separate bills that would have benefited Lebos, a chain of convenience stores and gas stations that he owns, by making it more difficult for larger retails to sell gas more cheaply than he does. One bill, critics said, would have raised the price of gas by at least 4 cents a gallon at those large retailers. Well, of course. Yeah, ethics. Right at the window. Okay? God, we're so corrupt. The fall of Rome, which, and I hate comparing us to Rome, because they were a really murderous society who reveled in bloodlust on the weekends. Went to these big stadiums and watched, people kick the crap out of each other. And they liked it. They cheered. They called it fun. And so I hate comparing us to that. But the fall of Rome did occur because of the rampant corruption through all levels of government. They were a representative government of sorts. So ProPublica and I believe the Advocate, is that right? Did a lengthy, in-depth study of all the bills that various Louisiana legislators had proposed, and every single one benefited their businesses. But the way the laws are set up there is that that's okay. And maybe they need to pay their legislators a bit more so that they don't have to take a side job. One of the reasons for having particular wages that you're above being blackmailed, or bought off. I guess people need to be bought off now to make ends meet. They have to. Okay, let's get to our break, and we'll come back and go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. Men inherit their Y chromosomes from their fathers, and they get an almost exact copy, other than a few mutations, meaning very little changes about the Y chromosome from generation to generation.
You may just have 100 people with the same Y chromosome because they are all descended from one man.
Marcus Feldman, a population geneticist at Stanford.
They all had this great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, and every male relative of that individual who's a first-degree relative has the same Y chromosome.
Researchers have thus used Y chromosome data, along with mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down only by our mothers, to investigate aspects of ancient populations. For example, one recent study found a huge drop in Y chromosome diversity 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. At the same time, mitochondrial DNA diversity continued to grow, implying a possible crash in the male population, with 17 women to every man. But
it seemed to us that the 17-to-1 sex ratio was just too extreme to be real.
So Feldman and his team used computational models to investigate other ideas, and they found that bloody fights between genetically homogeneous clans could have produced the same results.
Essentially, we're saying that the clans that are fighting one another are built around having the same Y chromosome.
Imagine a single deadly battle, knocking out a whole clan of men with the same Y chromosomes. Then repeat that unpleasant scenario a few times. You'd get a huge drop in the diversity of Y chromosomes, as the victorious clans won battles and expanded. The details are in the journal Nature Communications. Eventually, Y chromosome diversity bounced back, as smaller clan structures were replaced by large, genetically diverse cities and societies. A cultural innovation that we too inherited. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Nemhauser, filling in for your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. As the U.S. population ages, more people are at risk for injuries. The largest percentage of injury-related deaths among this group are caused by falls. Elizabeth Burns is with CDC's National Center for Injury Prevention and Control. She's joining us today to discuss ways to prevent injuries and deaths from falls among senior adults. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thanks for having me.
Elizabeth, what are some of the more common consequences when a senior adult falls?
Well, first, it's important to note that falls are incredibly common. More than 1 in 4 older adults will fall in a given year. Common consequences include loss of independence and an increased fear of falling, as older adults are afraid to do the same kinds of activities they were doing before. And this can actually lead to more falls as older adults have less strength in their lower body. Common consequences include hip fracture and traumatic brain injury. And ultimately, in 2016, almost 30,000 older adults died because of a fall.
So are falls more common in men or in women?
Falls are more common in women, and more women go to the emergency department because of a fall, and more women die because of a fall. However, the rate of fall deaths are more common in men than women. What this means is that out of 100,000 men, more will die from a fall than out of 100,000 women.
What are common causes of falls among older people?
Getting on and off the toilet and getting in and out of bed are common causes of falls. Walking around the hallways at night when the lights are off is a common way people fall. There's also an increased amount of medications used in seniors, which have side effects like making them lightheaded, and that increases the risk of falls and is a common cause.
With all of those factors, what are some ways our listeners can decrease their chances of falling?
Older adults should talk to their healthcare provider or doctor about how they can decrease their chances of falling. This can be done during the annual wellness visit or during annual physicals. The doctor will recommend an exercise program that should increase strength and balance or maybe refer you to a physical therapist. Additionally, they can look through your medications and perhaps reduce your doses or suggest medications that decrease your chances of falls.
Are there things we can do to modify our homes to prevent falling?
Oh, absolutely. Installing grab bars on the side of the toilet, making sure that rugs are taped down or removed, making sure that there's lighting in the hallways are all really simple ways that an older adult can modify their home to prevent falls.
Where can listeners go to get more information about preventing falls?
Listeners can go to cdc.gov/study, and that's spelled STEADI.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I've been talking today with Elizabeth Burns about ways to prevent fall-related injuries and deaths among senior adults. Improving strength and agility through regular exercise and removing potential obstacles in the home can help decrease the risk for falls. If you or a loved one is older and struggle with mobility, talk with a healthcare provider about ways to decrease the risks for fall-related injuries and death. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Jeffrey Nemhauser for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. A social culture of reform in pre-Civil War America was the fertile soil in which a variety of movements against slavery grew. These movements would later lead to the passage of the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. Among the most important abolition societies was the American Anti-Slavery Society, founded in Philadelphia in 1833 by William Lloyd Garrison and Arthur Tappan. The society espoused the immediate, uncompensated abolition of slavery. Garrison championed Frederick Douglass, the brilliant abolitionist and former slave who became the foremost African-American voice opposing slavery. Abolition societies attracted many women activists, although men sometimes opposed women's participation, causing abolitionist organizations to split apart. Even though traditionalist men sometimes opposed women's activism, women succeeded in playing significant roles in organizations opposing slavery. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute. 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
Question: what do you get when you combine ignorance, imperiousness, and incompetence? Answer: Betsy DeVos. She's Donald Trump's multi-billionaire education secretary who hates public education and loves the plutocratic idea of corporate rule over democracy. DeVos is so bad that she's winning the contest for worst member of Donald Trump's cabinet, a little like winning the title of ugliest toad in the swamp. She's been a shameless shill for one of the ugliest parts of the financial services industry, the Wall Street-backed network of for-profit colleges, rip-off lenders, and ruthless collection agencies. Some 5 million students, largely single moms, veterans, and other low-income people, have been forced to default on their student loan debt and have had their credit ratings and job improvement prospects destroyed by this profiteering private education system that DeVos carelessly promotes. Her latest favor for the industry was to assert unilaterally that her agency can preempt any state laws designed to stop the blatant lies and abuses of this predatory network of corporate education. Her bureaucratic claim is that state efforts to protect student borrowers undermines, quote, uniform administration of student loans. In her shriveled world of laissez-faire land values, you see, the uniform gouging of students trumps such basic human values as economic fairness and social justice. This is Jim Hightower saying, heavens to Betsy, what's wrong with this lady? Our nation's student loan debt has ballooned to $1.4 trillion, threatening to blow another big hole in our economy. Yet she's stupidly conspiring in her department's back rooms with Wall Street's fast-buck educational exploiters to enrich them at the expense of students, taxpayers, and the public interest. DeVos is the one who needs an education, both in economics and ethics.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
Hold your ground! Hold your ground! Sons of Gondor! Of Rohan! My brothers! I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day. An hour of wolves and shattered shields when the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand! Men of the West!
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. India, the world's fastest-growing economy, has pledged to eliminate single-use plastic bags by 2022 as a part of an ambitious environmental strategy laid out by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. As a part of World Environment Day celebrations this week, a new UN report warns that the world is drowning in plastic pollution, with 1 million plastic drinking bottles purchased each minute, and 5 trillion, with a T, single-use plastic bags used each year worldwide. All told, just 9% of all plastic ever produced has been recycled, with 79% ending up in landfills, dumps, or the natural environment. And while India may be just one country, its crackdown on plastic waste could have a big impact, given that studies suggest some 90% of the plastic in the oceans is brought there by just 10 rivers around the world, 3 of which are in India. And once that plastic reaches the oceans, it's basically too late to do anything about it. Instead of biodegrading, plastic in the oceans simply breaks down into smaller pieces or beads, which are ingested by fish and birds. One 2015 study found that 90% of seabirds' stomachs contain plastic, and that by 2050 there could be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Laws banning single-use plastic bags are one way to tackle the problem, but consumers play a big role too, by pressuring manufacturers to stop using plastic in food packaging, bringing along reusable bags to the supermarket, or turning down plastic cutlery when grabbing takeout. And here at the Talk Media News Bureau in New York, we've replaced this familiar sound of a plastic straw plunging into an iced coffee with this. Nifty metal straws we can use if we absolutely must keep our lips off the rim of a cup. Luke Vargas, the United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays is our daily special. All right, so let's begin with weather from around the world, and we always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently, well, it's 61 degrees, and we are slated to be around the same temp as we were yesterday, which was in the mid-80s. So not so bad. Once it gets into, 105, 108, 110, we don't want to see those temps anymore. At least without lava nearby, heaven forbid. Okay, so winds are currently out of the south at 2 miles per hour. We'll be shifting out of the west in a few hours, and we'll be at our usual 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then later on tonight, we'll be then shifting again out of the west-northwest, continuing at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Lows will be around 55 tonight. Tomorrow should be around 80. And dry conditions will continue for the moment. Grass pollen is still very high. Air quality index is up a notch, still good at 14. And the UV index, the daytime UV, has gone down a notch, but still very high at 8. High pressure continues at 29.89 inches. Visibility is at 9 miles. And relative humidity is at 77%. Okay, so dry conditions will continue, though we will have rain Friday and Saturday. And that's tomorrow. So tomorrow night we'll be having rain, and I'm still trying to figure out what I will be doing with the show for tomorrow, because it looks like I actually have to leave a bit earlier than I anticipated. So it may be a mix of pre-recorded live content and the regular stuff for the show. So we'll figure that out. But hey, the show must go on. I mean, come on. I wasn't raised by circus people and Hollywood types for nothing. No. All right. Let's go to weather from around the world. And weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people are positively come from around the world. Yes, they do. All right. London, the guy outside of London, to be exact, is registering 71 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 76 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 79 and currently fair, though they have a heat warning that excessive heat, once they get to be around 80, that's when their infrastructure wants to kick off. Darn. Kiev is 71 and fair. Kabul is 81 degrees with wind. Hong Kong is 76 and rain. Tokyo is 71 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 55 and fair. San Francisco, California is 52 degrees and cloudy, and they continue with their small craft advisory in the bay and offshore. And New York, New York is 64 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Casey Michelle from Think Progress penned this first piece here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. After analysts predicted 2018 could be a bumper year for white supremacists running for office, there were concerns that these neo-fascists would take their first real step toward power in the Trump era during Tuesday's primaries. Despite white supremacists' growing prominence in recent years, however, Tuesday's results did not bring those candidates any closer to power, although some have vowed to run for office again. The most high-profile, or at least strangest white supremacist running for office was Patrick Little, who was seeking the Republican nomination for California's Senate seat. Little embraced many of the baseline white supremacist views, rank anti-Semitism, and endorsement for David Duke calls for the balkanization of America. But he also took his thirst for attention further than most. For instance, after being booted from the California GOP convention earlier this year, Little released a video spitting and stomping on the Israeli flag. I'll tell you, that works pretty good in areas along, the High Sierras. Initially, Little actually seemed like he'd tapped into an audience willing to back his fascistic views. One April poll found that some 20% of California voters would be supporting his campaign, enough to land him on the ballot in November to face Senator Dianne Feinstein. Shortly thereafter, a series of robocalls backing Little and laced with anti-Semitic epithets, eventually tracked by the Spokesman Review back to a racist holding up in northern Idaho, had covered California. All that attention, though, appears to have backfired, cratering Little's bizarre campaign. On Tuesday, Little landed in a distant 12th place, while he still managed to earn 55,000 votes. Enough for 1.4% of the vote. 7 other Republicans earned higher returns, all falling short of Feinstein and State Senator Kevin De Leon, who's also a Democrat. Yeah, they have ranked filing in California. I live in Oregon now, so we don't. But in keeping with his conspiratorial racism, Little has vowed that he won't give up. No. Jewish supremacists and the Zionists undercounted his votes, he said. He added that he will be filing a lawsuit challenging the vote results and that he's planning on running for president in 2020. You never know. Remember Facing the Crowd? This guy should learn how to play the guitar.
Je te donne, c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Elizabeth Pressa from Alternate penned this last offering here at the Chef's Table of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. Sports reporter Jeff Pearlman, a former Sports Illustrated writer and an author of the upcoming book Football for a Buck, detailed the origins of Donald Trump's hostile relationship with the NFL and explained how Trump's obsession with joining the big boys club sank the United States Football League. Everything he touches turns to, well, we'll find out what that is. Pearlman examined the historical roots of Trump's grudge against the NFL, noting there's so much more here than you think. Pearlman, who interviewed 400 people for his new book on the USFL, said Trump's beef with the National Football League dates back to the early 80s, when the Baltimore Colts were for sale. Pearlman said that Trump wanted to buy the Colts, but the Israel family had zero interest in selling to him. Referencing Trump's oft-repeating claim he almost bought the Colts, Pearlman called that assertion factually untrue. Nice way of calling it a lie. Even then. And no one liked the Israelis, but they hated Trump a lot more. The NFL had a very negative sort of Trump feel at the time, Pearlman said, and I think they do still. noting the commissioner knew Trump's reputation in New York real estate was pretty slimy and also suspected Trump didn't have that much money. And where would he be getting it? Well, at the time, it was the Sicilian mob, with just a smattering of some Russian mob money first coming in. Trump eventually signed on to join the USFL, a spring football league with regional drafts that Perlman describes as a really good idea. At the last minute, Trump backed out, calling the other owners to tell him it's not going to happen. I'm out. An Oklahoma oil man, J. Walter Duncan, agreed to buy the team to fill the void left by Trump. Duncan sold the New York Generals to Trump, who overpaid for the team by $2 million and began telling the other owners how excited he was to be part of the league. Suddenly, upon joining the league, Trump demanded the USFL switch to playing in the fall, telling the other owners the league had to battle head-to-head with the NFL. Perlman said the other owners greeted Trump with a collective, "What the F are you talking about?" And as he was wont to do, Trump employed his fake publicist, John Barron, who we all know as Donald Trump with a fake accent, to spread pure BS about why the league needed to move to the fall. Trump's goal the entire time, Perlman argued, was to get into the NFL. His complete and total intent was to land an NFL franchise, Perlman said. In 1984, Trump met with Pete Rozelle, then the NFL commissioner, to discuss joining the league. Trump was told he would never be an owner in the league. "We have no interest in you," Rozelle told Trump, explaining he was rejected by the NFL, and eventually led a lawsuit against the opposing league, as is his custom. Trump promised the other USFL owners he would guarantee a win, and eventually the USFL was awarded $1. According to Perlman, every promise Trump made to USFL owners was a lie, and the USFL across the board all went to shit. That's Perlman's quote there. "Everything Donald Trump turns to shit," Perlman said, arguing this is a guy who was rejected by the big boys club and now relates the NFL to seething anger and resentment. Trump's attacks on kneeling NFL players, Perlman argued, is not about the flag, calling that argument nonsense. Instead, it was born out of that same seething anger and resentment that led to him single-handedly ruining a really good football league. "I thought spring football would have been grand." And everything that Trump represented was thin, cheap, gold-plated BS. No one liked Trump. He cheapened everything. And he still does. All right, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but we'll be back tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays because we are all night hawks in the Diner of Life. So stay tuned to breaking news for the rest of the day on Netroots Radio because it's always breaking news all day, every day. And we will visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie d'un novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.